Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. His tomb. For those who violate the rules, the isolation becomes even more unbearable. Offenders are confined to a small, dark cell for 15 days, furnished with only a metal bucket and a wooden perch. Aside from the extreme isolation, basic facilities like bathrooms are severely limited, contributing to the high incidence of tuberculosis among inmates. During their brief hour and a half of outdoor time each day, prisoners are restricted to pacing in a small outdoor cage. Petak Island stands out even among the world's most notorious prisons for its stringent security measures. While it protects inmates from the violence, rape, and abuse prevalent in less secure facilities, the psychological torment inflicted by Petak Island is enough to break even the most hardened criminals. Lefortovo Prison. Lefortovo Prison was built in Moscow's Lefortovo district in 1881 and was named in honor of Francois Lefort, a close confidant of Tsar Peter. Lefortovo became infamous as a site of mass executions and brutal interrogations conducted by the secret police. Later, it continued this dark legacy as a prison and interrogation center, specifically designated as an investigative isolator for political prisoners. In 1994, control of the prison shifted to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, followed by a period from 1996 to 2005 under the jurisdiction. The facility is known for its rigorous detention protocols, allowing visits only from legal counsel, with all correspondence monitored by prison authorities. Tucked away in a peaceful neighborhood of eastern Moscow, lined with trees, Lefortovo Prison has a long history of detaining a diverse range of individuals, including spies, political dissidents, writers, rebels, and dangerous criminals, dating back to the late Tsarist era. Today, Lefortovo serves as a pre-trial detention center where inmates may be held for extended periods, sometimes over a year. Adjacent to the prison, the investigative department ensures efficient access to detainees. Strict security measures include key card-operated doors and constant surveillance via CCTV, monitored from a central command post. Every individual an inmate encounters, from custodians delivering meals through secure hatches, reports directly to the Federal Security Service. Marina Litvinenko, wife of former Security Service officer Alexander Litvinenko, described Lefortovo as the most isolated place, highlighting its psychological toll on inmates. According to Mrs. Litvinenko, her husband was detained at Butyrka prison for 8 months on charges related to his official duties before his tragic death in London from polonium poisoning. A United Kingdom inquiry attributed his death to possible orders from Russian President Vladimir Putin. Mrs. Litvinenko alleged that the authorities attempted to break her husband's spirit, trying to coerce him into making specific statements. Alexei Melnikov, executive secretary of Moscow's Public Oversight Commission, noted improvements in Lefortovo's facilities since the 1990s, describing it as one of Eastern Europe's top detention centers. Despite his support for the current Russian government, he acknowledged the ongoing challenges and comparisons with prisons in the United States during his recent visit. Kresty Prison. The origins of the prison trace back to the 1730s, when it functioned as Vinogorodok, a warehouse complex responsible for storing all of St. Petersburg's wine during the reign of Anna Ioannovna. After the Emancipation Reform, which abolished serfdom, there was a substantial rise in the demand for prison facilities. Before these reforms, landowners held serfs in prisons, but afterward, they were detained in state-operated facilities. In 1867, the wine warehouse was converted into a 700-bed prison, featuring separate sections for men and women. The reconstruction was overseen by Vladislav Lvov, chairman of the St. Petersburg Prison Committee. By the turn of the century, the prison proved inadequate for the city's needs. Antony Tomishko, a member of the Russian Academy of Arts and an architect for the Russian State Prison Administration, designed a new city prison. Influenced by German prison systems and inspired by the Philadelphia system, which emphasized observation and isolation, Tomishko envisioned a structure consisting of 2 cross-shaped 5-story buildings. The complex included a notable Russian Revival church atop an administrative building, along with a hospital, infectious disease ward, morgue, ice room, and blacksmith. Construction began in 1884 and lasted until 1890, with prisoners themselves carrying out much of the labor while housed on site. The new prison incorporated cutting-edge features such as electric lighting, effective ventilation, and central heating. A monument to English prison reformer John Howard was installed in the central building of the cross-shaped complex. At the time of its completion, it was hailed as one of the most advanced prisons globally and became the largest in Europe. Legend has it that when presenting the prison to Tsar Alexander III, Tomishko allegedly boasted that he had built it for the Tsar, to which the Tsar reportedly replied that Tomishko had built it for himself. However, the story about a secret 1,000th cell holding Tomishko's body and his ghost haunting the prison is likely untrue, given that the facility only has 960 cells. Originally named St. Petersburg Prison for Solitary Confinement in Imperial Russia, the institution detained both common criminals and political prisoners. Notable inmates included Alexander Kerensky, future prime minister of the Russian Provisional Government, Bolshevik leaders like Leon Trotsky and Vladimir Antonov Ovsenko, and Anatoly Lunacharsky, the first Soviet People's Commissar of Enlightenment. During the turbulent times of 1906, all 200 deputies of the First State Duma were temporarily held at Kresty Prison for signing the Vyborg Manifesto. During the February Revolution of 1917, the prison became a focal point as insurgent soldiers and workers breached its walls, releasing prisoners and demolishing prison records. Following the revolution, Kresty Prison continued to hold prominent figures from the Tsarist regime, including ministers and police officials. It later served as a site for state crimes during the Great Purges, when overcrowding was rampant, and cells designed for solitary confinement housed multiple inmates. In 1920, the prison was renamed the Second Special Camp for Involuntary Labor and came under the administration of the Petrograd Ispolikom. By 1923, it had become part of the Petrograd Cheka system as the Petrograd District Isolation Prison. Throughout subsequent decades, Kresty detained a wide range of notable figures, from artists like Kazimir Malevich and poets like Daniil Karms, to future military leaders such as Marshal Konstantin Rokossovsky. Oriol Prison. The Oriol Prison, located in Oriol since the 19th century, holds a significant historical legacy. Constructed in 1840, it stands as one of the oldest buildings in the city, originally serving as a place of incarceration for various prisoners. During World War II, Oriol Prison became notorious for its role in holding political prisoners and war captives. In 1941, amid escalating tensions and just before the German occupation, Joseph Stalin personally ordered the execution of 157 political prisoners at the Medvedev Forest Massacre, highlighting its grim history during wartime. Under Nazi occupation, from October 1941 to June 1943, Oriol Prison was transformed into a concentration camp where brutal conditions prevailed. Thousands of prisoners of war, including Dietrich von Sauken, endured extreme suffering and maltreatment. Accounts from survivors like Latkovska Wojtuszkiewicz vividly describe the horrors of overcrowded, unsanitary conditions where starvation, shootings, exposure, and poisoning were commonplace. After World War II, the Soviet authorities continued to use Oriol Prison as a facility for political detainees and other inmates. The post-war years saw the prison witness further hardships, including severe overcrowding and inadequate living conditions, which persisted well into the 20th century. Today, the historical prison complex has been repurposed. It currently houses the Investigative Isolation Ward under the Penitentiary Service of the Russian Ministry of Justice. Additionally, there is a specialized prison hospital for tuberculosis patients, serving as a reminder of the facility's enduring role in Russia's penal system and its tragic past. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.